In my lifetime as an infectious disease person for over 30 years, I've never seen so rapid development of the science behind this viral infection. After merely 2 weeks of its first report out of China, the virus was fully characterized genetically, and understanding and having that information allows for the development of vaccines that are part of components of the virus, et cetera. And there is a compound vaccine that's going to be started in the United States April 1st, conducted under the National Institutes of Health. There are 2 vaccine trials already in China that are underway, so we'll get some information. The problem with the development of any vaccine is you need to go through a number of steps, or what we call phases, in order to test tolerability as well as safety, and then in some individuals at risk, some of the vulnerable populations, including those that are elderly or have other medical conditions at risk for developing severe COVID-19 infection, we'll do those. And then finally, we'll get to general vaccine trials in the population to look at efficacy, and that is a phase 3 trial. But best estimates, even though we've ramped this up as much as we could, at least in the United States, are probably 12 to even 18 months away from having that available for widespread use. But that's faster than most other vaccine strategies and programs, where it can take years and years for that to come out to the market.
Well, Australia's science agency, the CSIRO, have begun the first stages of testing for potential vaccines for coronavirus. Here to tell me more is the director of the CSIRO's Australian Animal Health Laboratory down in Geelong, where the testing is being carried out, Professor Trevor Drew. He's been with us before via Skype. Well, Dr. Drew, you're about the most important person in Australia I could be talking to tonight. We all want a bit of hope. You're about to start the first testing processes. Tell us more.
No, it's not me that's important. It's all my team who are actually the ones who are doing the work that are important. Yes, we have reached a very pivotal point in the development of this vaccine, or at least the validation of vaccines, to get to the Australian people and the people of the world ultimately. So where we are at the moment, we have been working very hard developing a pipeline for accreditation of the vaccine. So how we do this is we put a vaccine into some ferrets. And then we watch the progress of the replication of the virus, and we classify it, and we carefully define exactly what's going on in the animal, and then we know what disease looks like, what the course of infection in the ferret is. And then from there, we vaccinate the ferrets, and then we challenge them a period afterwards, and then we make an assessment of the level of protection. And we're doing quite a lot of complicated work around that piece, both in defining the course of infection and what types of vaccine may be most effective, and which inoculation routes might be most effective.
Okay, so this is, would we call this the first stage by moving into vaccines and animals? Is this the first stage in the process?
Yes, yes. Well, apart from the people who've actually developed the vaccine in the first place. So there was an organisation, or is an organisation, called the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, and they were a body set up through funding from the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, and various other contributory people, and also the G20, so the World Economic Forum as well. So what this was to develop a funding. So we were quite fortunate in that we had applied at the Australian Animal Health Laboratory. We had applied for funding from this group to set up a pipeline in about October, November of last year, way before we ever knew about this particular virus was coming along. So we were actually a little bit ahead of the curve curve in that we were already setting up that pipeline. We knew from SARS, the original virus that caused such a big outbreak in 2002, we knew that this virus was likely to infect ferrets because of the receptors that are used. These are proteins on the surface of the lung, the cells of the lung, that this virus will bind to. So we knew that there was a good chance that ferrets would be susceptible. So at the moment we got the virus, and we were very fortunate that our neighbours in Melbourne at the Doherty Institute were the first group outside China to isolate the virus from an Australian patient, and that's the virus that we're now using in our trials.
Okay, so I'm told this will take about 3 months. After we get through this stage, and let's presume you have some success, what happens next?
That's correct. So what happens then is that the data that we collect is we present as a dossier to the vaccine manufacturer, and it's also made available to licensing bodies. And based on that data, that evidence, they will make a decision on whether or not the vaccine is safe and effective and shows sufficient promise to take into the next stage. And there are usually 3 stages of this, and they're all done in humans. And there's a phase 1 clinical trial, which is essentially to prove that that the vaccine is safe. And then we go to a second phase where a small cohort of people are vaccinated that have potential to be exposed to the disease in nature. And then the third phase is a final rollout of the vaccine more generally.
Trevor Drew, just before we go, give me your most hopeful answer here. How long could we be before we have the vaccine available?
I described those 3 clinical phases in humans. I think there is a certain amount of speculation about whether or not we might be able to shorten some of those stages, but that's ultimately up to the licensing authority and the country, and perhaps also the global situation. But I would say that the earliest that we might expect to see these trials nearing completion would likely be the beginning of next year, and probably more realistically the middle of next year.
All right, well, we've still got to hang on a bit, and we're all wishing you enormous luck, and a lot of prayers are going your way to you. And as you very eloquently said at the top of the show there, you're amazing researchers and scientists. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Right now, it is our great hope, a vaccine for coronavirus, and today scientists at the CSIRO are a step closer to a breakthrough. They've taken us inside mission control, where 2 potential vaccines are being put to the test.
It looks like a scene from science fiction. Researchers in full body suits. They're attached to tubes like umbilical cords, supplying them with air. Each time they leave the lab, via a secure airlock, they need to shower. The Animal Health Laboratory in Geelong is the only one in the Southern Hemisphere that's capable of carrying highly dangerous and exotic pathogens. They're working around the clock in the fight against COVID-19.
Normally it takes about 1 year to 2 to actually get to the point where we've got to.
Ferrets are being used to test 2 potential vaccines from the University of Oxford and a pharmaceutical company in the US. The first approach uses a different virus to introduce proteins from COVID-19 to trigger an immune response. The second uses part of the genetic code of the coronavirus, so the body is able to make viral proteins to also stimulate the immune system.
It is absolutely essential that these vaccines are effective and also that they are safe.
The CSIRO says results from these animal trials will be announced in June, and if human trials succeed, a vaccine could be available at the end of this year or early next year.
Those public health measures need to be held in place until we are actually safe with vaccines.
And if you're wondering whether your pet can spread the virus,
there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that companion animals play any role in the epidemiology.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
Well, fresh hope in the fight against COVID-19 this morning, with Australian scientists launching the first testing on potential coronavirus vaccines.
Sounds good, doesn't it? In what's being described as a critical milestone, the trials are expected to take around 3 months at CSIRO's facility in Geelong. And Dr Rob Glanville is the CSIRO Health Director and joins us now from Melbourne. Doctor, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. I was so looking forward to talking to you. What will these tests involve?
So these tests will actually involve the candidates that we have received from the CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, and approved by the WHO for testing. We'll be testing these on our models. We actually have a ferret model that we've been working on since January to analyse the effectiveness of vaccines. Over that period of time, we immunise, then we actually expose to the virus, and then we work out how effective those vaccine candidates have been at working, so they then can move on to human trials if they work.
What do you mean you immunise? Just talk us through that process. You immunise with what first?
So we have been presented with 2 samples that the WHO and CEPI selected as first entrants into this test phase. So we immunise our test animals, and we immunise them with these 2 samples, and then after about a 3-week period, we then expose them to the virus, and we look at how those vaccines work and what happens.
So the 2 vaccines you're looking at, I mean, I think there's one from the US and there's one from the UK that you're looking at. There's also something locally, so there's the 3. I mean, just how do you balance this? I mean, the whole world is working so quickly to find a vaccine. We keep being told that, 18 months or so away. How do you make sure that, you're working safely as well as quickly?
Look, safety is paramount. In this type of work, the quality systems that we have to adhere to are the highest that you possibly can. Now, that's very important because we do not want vaccines or vaccine candidates that are in fact actually unsafe to proceed on to human trials. So that's where this work is vital work, so that 1, we can demonstrate they work, and 2, we can demonstrate that they don't cause harm.
I note with interest last night Greg Hunt was on The Current Affair and he was talking about the fact that they're rushing in this malaria vaccine. I can't recall the name. It's hydrochloro something or other. And perhaps you can help me out with that. But that is for the treatment of all of this. Realistically, how far away are we from a vaccine that is going to be effective in a wide scale across the community?
So, look, I'll come back to the chloroquine question, Carl, but the vaccine, we're around about 18 months total in the process, but we've in fact shortened the time period by, I reckon, around about a month or 2. Normally it takes about a year to 2 to actually get to the point where we've got to. So to give you an idea, we've done this from late January to now to actually get to this stage. And we also understand that a lot of the studies within the margins of safety and quality are in fact actually also being accelerated. So there's multi-trials with these candidates going on globally as we speak. So that's happening at that level. So, we may, if we see human trials, phase 1 trials, with, say, one of the candidates they're touting, they may in fact be looking at late April, early May was the last thing we heard, which is ambitious. But if they move into that phase, then phase 2, Carl, this could be an incredible situation where we do have them much earlier than that initial 18 months that everyone's been talking about. Now let's come back to the chloroquine question. Chloroquine is an old anti-malarial drug that we've used before. There were some studies that came out of China suggesting that it may in fact actually reduce the damage caused by the virus or even the chance of catching the virus. Now I'm aware that there are a couple of studies now that have commenced in Australia to look at how they maybe work. One of the well-controlled studies that I am aware of is being done by the Australian Malarial and Infectious Diseases Centre up there in Townsville, and I know that they have set up a very well-controlled study to look at whether or not this works.
Wow.
So it's not a reason to go out and buy that drug because it's not proven yet.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that is interesting, isn't it, that we're probably closer to finding a treatment, obviously, than we are to a vaccine. But while we've got you here this morning, I just wanted to ask, too, because we're hearing that the flu shot is going to be in short supply this year. How concerning is that?
Look, as a public health doctor, we've been part of the urging of everyone, especially those at high risk, to get a flu injection every year, because the more people that have it, the less likely we are to have the annual flu outbreaks. Now, there is potential that we will still have a surge in cases during the flu season later this year. So it's vital that as many people as possible can in fact actually get a flu injection. Now, I know that means a surge on supply of those. Most importantly, those vulnerable people need to get their flu shot this year, and they need to do that as soon as they can get supply of that. For the rest of us, it certainly is strongly advised that we also achieve getting flu vaccine this year.
The takeout from all of that, we're moving closer, hopefully closer towards a vaccine. I could talk to you all day, Rob. I find it all very fascinating. And thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
A team of Chinese scientists has isolated several antibodies that they say are extremely effective at blocking the ability of the new coronavirus to enter cells, a discovery that could be helpful in treating or preventing COVID-19. Zhang Linqi and his team in Beijing say a drug made with antibodies could be more effective than current approaches, like using plasma, which contains antibodies but is restricted by blood type.
The importance of antibodies has been proven in the world of medicine for decades now. They can be used to treat cancer, autoimmune diseases, and infectious diseases. So we have reason to believe that these antibodies we have discovered can be extremely effective on coronavirus patients for both prevention and treatment.
Zhang and his team began analysing antibodies in January using the blood taken from recovered COVID-19 patients. The team has developed their testing and are now focused on identifying and possibly combining the most powerful antibodies to mitigate the risk of the new coronavirus mutating. This means the antibodies are not a vaccine but could potentially be given to at-risk people with the aim of preventing them from contracting COVID-19. If all goes well, interested developers could mass produce them for testing, first on animals and eventually on humans.
And some hopeful news this morning, something that we all need to hear. A California scientist and his team say they have found a potential cure for the coronavirus. Dr. Jacob Glanville works for a lab called Distributed Bio, and he's also one of the doctors featured in the Netflix documentary series Pandemic. His team has been working around the clock trying to come up with a drug to treat the coronavirus, and now he says he believes they have found one.
We are happy to announce that we have completed the engineering and we have some very potent antibodies that can be effective against the virus.
Now, Dr. Glanville says his team took antibodies used to neutralize SARS and used technology in their labs to adapt them to recognize the coronavirus. He projects human trials in the U.S. could begin this summer. And if all goes well, crossing our fingers there, a drug could be ready by this fall.
Dr. Jacob Glanville is founding partner and president of Distributed Bio and a computational immunoengineer. He is also featured in the Netflix documentary series Pandemic, which some of us want to watch right now and some of us don't want to watch right now. Doctor, good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I saw you yesterday talking to Liz Klayman on the Business Channel, and I was so intrigued by what you were describing. Explain to everybody at home what you're working on.
Sure. So, Martha, thank you for having me on. What my company is doing is adapting antibodies to recognize and neutralize the novel coronavirus. So this would act like it's sort of skipping what a vaccine does. So instead of giving you a vaccine and waiting for it to produce an immune response, we just give you those antibodies right away. And so within about 20 minutes, that patient has the ability to neutralize the virus.
So how close are you to achieving this goal? How many months, years away are you from being able to give people what's essentially a treatment, right?
Sure. So we're moving super fast on this. We had a little bit of a scare when the ordinance shut down all non-essential business here in San Francisco, but my team members all volunteered to come in and keep working on this, and we had an exception. So we're about 3 to 4 weeks away from completing all of our engineering. At that point, the completed drug is going to go to the U.S. AMRID, so that's the U.S. military, and they're going to be testing it for its ability to neutralize the virus. At the same time, that drug is going to go to Charles River Laboratories, which is an international contract research group, which is going to test the safety of that drug. Both of those pieces of information come together so that we can produce batches, go through some red tape, and then do the first human studies that we'll do on 200 to 600 people in the summer, probably in July.
So just to be clear,
of that study,
I'm sorry, just to be clear, it's a vaccine or it's a treatment?
It's an antibody. It's a treatment.
Okay.
So
if you get
it's an infusion.
Exactly. So, talk to me a little bit. You said, so in the summer, human trials could begin. What's your time frame on how long do you think what we're doing right now is working in terms of social distancing and just basically shutting down so much of life in America? Is that working? And what kind of trajectory do you see us on when we look at these other countries?
Sure. So it is definitely helping. We are way safer now than we were a week ago. The social distancing measures slow down the growth of new cases. But the problem is eventually people have to go back to work. And the coronavirus appears so infectious that we don't think we're actually going to be able to squish out the pandemic just through social distancing. So eventually we're going to need medicine, because otherwise all the models I'm looking at are guessing that this thing's going to last all year, and it could indeed become seasonal with everybody eventually becoming infected.
So you've been trying to basically cure a flu or new flus or all flus together in your lab for a long time. What is so unique about this, and how is this different when you look at it under a microscope than what you were planning on?
Well, so we still are doing that flu research. We have a broad spectrum flu vaccine that is supported by the Gates Foundation, the End the Pandemic Threat Initiative. The difference with coronavirus is that it's a very different type of virus. It's much more deadly, and it's much more infectious. And so it needs different types of medicine. So right now, because there is no medicine, even though I think a vaccine is a good idea, and I'm glad that people are working on it, it just takes too long to run trials for vaccines for that to be able to help us now when we need it. So what my group is doing, because other groups are already working on vaccines, is that we're making an antibody therapeutic. That could be tried in humans in the summer to do what's called a phase 1/2 study on about 600 people. And that sets us up by September to be able to use something called compassionate use, which is to say if it works well in the summer, we can start handing it out to hundreds of thousands of people who need it by the fall.
So when you look at other countries, you look at what's going on in Italy, and you see these bed shortages and these terrible decisions that we're hearing doctors making in terms of ventilators, are we going to see that here?
There's going to be some of that. The good news is that we've made a series of very strict social distancing measures across the entire United States. This has been declared a national emergency, and absolutely the right decisions were made. And that means that it may seem scarier, but the truth is we are now safer. So we're on a different trajectory than what Italy's experiencing. Our medical care is excellent. That said, this thing is really infectious, and it's growing. So we are going to see stress on our hospitals and our ICUs throughout the nation. And that's part of the reason why the White House made such a strong decision to go institute these isolation measures.
So just one last question, which is a really big question, but I'm going to ask you to do it in a very in an easy way that people can understand, because I heard you mention this with Liz. When you look at this under the microscope and you say, we were looking at SARS, we're looking at other infectious diseases in the past, how do you teach this medicine to go after this disease?
Okay, so this is actually pretty cool. So the way our medicine works, because we wanted to get a medicine really quickly, is that we went back to SARS from almost 20 years ago, 2002. And people had created these 5 different really good antibodies that neutralize SARS. So if SARS ever came back, those would be great drugs. And what we've done in our laboratory is we're tweaking them. We're using bioengineering methods to adapt them to now recognize the new coronavirus. And so by doing this, we're hitchhiking on 2 years of research to be able to make drugs super fast that recognize the new virus. And we teach them to do that by creating hundreds of millions of mutations and then testing them in our laboratory very quickly.
It's fascinating. I think what you're doing is fascinating, and I really appreciate you being here and explaining it to us. Doctor, thank you. Dr. Jacob Glanville, I hope you'll keep us posted as this moves forward.
We will.
We'll check back in with you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glanville.